Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Before we start with our today's practice questions, we have a gentle reminder. As part of our weekly current affairs explain session, today's topic would be Data Protection Bill withdrawn. Please do tune in live on our YouTube channel at 8 p.m. so that you understand everything about this topic. Let's get started and look into the first question. Consider the following statements with respect to Vice President of India. To be eligible for election as Vice President, he or she should be qualified for election as a member of the lower house. The oath of office to the Vice President is administered by the Chief Justice of India, and in his absence, the senior-most judge of the Supreme Court available. If the office falls vacant by resignation, removal, death or otherwise, then election to fill the vacancy should be held within 6 months from the date of occurrence of such a vacancy. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is none. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the Vice President of India. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the first option, it says to be eligible for election as Vice President, he or she should be qualified for election as a member of the lower house. This is a wrong statement. Why? Because it is not the lower house, but instead it is the upper house. So when we speak about the Vice President, the eligibility will be with respect to the Rajya Sabha and not with respect to the Lok Sabha. So the first statement is wrong. When you look into the second statement, the oath of office to the Vice President is administered by the Chief Justice of India, and in his absence, the senior-most judge of the Supreme Court available. This statement once again is wrong. That is because the oath is administered not by the Chief Justice of India, but instead it is by the President. If you look into the third statement, if the office falls vacant by resignation, removal, death or otherwise, then election to fill the vacancy should be held within 6 months. This is a wrong statement because it is as soon as possible. This statement is for the president and not for the vice president. So whenever you see 6 months, it is for the president, and when you see as soon as possible, it is for the vice president, which is why the answer to this would be D, that is none. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to elephant, which of the following statements are correct? Asian elephant is listed as endangered on the IUCN Red List. Only some male Asian elephants have tusks, while both male and female African elephants grow tusks. There are two species of African elephants, the savanna or bush elephant and the forest elephant. Forest elephants are larger than the savanna elephants and their tusks curve outwards. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 1 and 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the World Elephant Day, which is celebrated annually on August 12th. When you look into the first statement reads, Asian elephant is listed as endangered on the IUCN Red List. This is the right statement. As shown in the IUCN Red List, the Asian elephant happens to be endangered. We have three types of Asian elephants. One is the Sri Lankan elephant. Second is the Indian elephant. Third happens to be the Sumatran elephant. And as part of the assignment, you have to put on the comment section the IUCN status of the Asian elephant happens to be endangered. What about the forest elephants which are present in Africa? What is its IUCN status? Please put it on the comment section. When you look into the second statement, only some male Asian elephants have tusks, while both male and female African elephants grow tusks. This happens to be the right statement. What are the differences between the Asian elephant and the African elephant? When you look into the differences, the Asian elephants have a twin domed head with an indent running upon the center of their head. African elephants have fuller, more rounded heads, and the top of their head is a single dome shape. Asian elephants' ears are much smaller, almost semicircular in shape. The ears of the African elephants are much larger, almost shaped like the African continent. The Asian elephant is comparatively smaller than its African counterpart. Adults reach about 3.5 meters. Of the two elephant species, the African elephant is the larger one. Adults reach a height of 4 meters. So what do we see? in Africa, we have two types of elephants. One happens to be the savanna elephant, the other happens to be the forest elephant. So when you consider the savanna elephant, this happens to be larger than the forest elephants, and it is not the forest elephants which are larger than the savanna elephants, which is why the third statement is wrong, and the answer to this would be 1 and 2 only. If we have to know the difference between these three types, what we have is the African savanna elephant, which happens to be the largest. Then what we have is the Asian elephant as shown here, and finally what we have is the African forest elephant as shown in the third image. And do note, when it comes to the elephants, they have their own threats as well. One, there is a collision between the human and the animals. So what we have is the human animal conflict. Human elephant conflicts happens to be the prime reason where there is deforestation, there is human encroachment, and there is retaliation between the human beings against the elephants because of the crop destruction. So the first major threat happens to be the human animal conflict. Then we have illegal poaching for the elephant skin as well as the tusk. The demand for the elephant skin has risen considerably. That is because they are used as an ingredient in the traditional Chinese medicines. This happens to be the threat when it comes to the elephants. And do note, every year we do have something called as the World Elephant Day, which is celebrated every year on August 12th, and this is dedicated for the preservation and protection of the world elephant. Now let's look into the next practice question. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 39, 1948 is concerned with admission of new members to the United Nations, Israel-Palestine political solution, resolution of the Kashmir conflict, the situation concerning Iraq. The answer to this is resolution of the Kashmir conflict. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to UN Security Council Resolution 39, which is why we have taken this practice question. What is this United Nations resolutions? These are nothing but the formal expression of the United Nations, where it gives an opinion or it is the will of the United Nations organ. When was the first time United Nations Security Council discussed about Jammu and Kashmir? This was in the year 1948. India for the first time approaches the United Nations Security Council, and as a result they discuss about India and Pakistan. So when you speak about this resolution, there were three resolutions. One was the resolution of 38. Then what we have is the resolution of 39. Then we have another important resolution in the form of resolution 47. In resolution 38, the Security Council hears the statements on the situation in Kashmir from the representatives of the governments of India as well as Pakistan. In resolution 39, what happens? This takes place on January 20th, 1948. The United Nations Security Council immediately appoints one of the commission called as the UN Commission for India and Pakistan. There was disagreement between India and Pakistan, which led to the failure as the commission failed to materialize. So they appoint a commission. It had three members. India and Pakistan were not happy with it, and as a result, this particular commission did not materialize. Then we have the resolution of 47, which took place in the month of April, and this was mandated to plan a mechanism to ensure a plebiscite in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. This commission was constituted with about 5 members. So initially they had 3 members, which was not accepted by India and Pakistan, and in the resolution of 47, what we have is 5 members, and they come up with a mechanism to ensure plebiscite in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And do note, when it comes to the resolution 39, they also come up with what is called as the UNMOGIP. What is this UNMOGIP? This happens to be the United Nations Military Observer Group in India and Pakistan. So the UNMOG emerged from the Security Council resolution of 39 of January 1948. Why was this group appointed in the first place? That is because the United Nations had asked for a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. So someone had to monitor it. To monitor whether the ceasefire is intact between India and Pakistan, they appointed a group which is called as the United Nations Military Observer Group in India and Pakistan. Basically, they will accompany the local authorities in their investigations, gather as much information as possible, and report as much as possible completely, accurately, and impartially about the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. What is the objective of this group? This group will see if there is any ceasefire violations. In case there is anything, the same will be reported to the Secretary General in the United Nations. And do note, UNMOGIP is financed by the United Nations regular budget. What is India's stand on this group? India officially maintains that UNMOGIP's rule was overtaken by the Simla Agreement of 1972. What do we mean by it? In 1972, India and Pakistan entered the Simla Agreement. What did the Simla Agreement say? The Simla Agreement went on to say that India and Pakistan will resolve all the issues between India and Pakistan. It will not allow any third party to interfere. But here what we have is a third party. So India says that we do not require the intervention of a third party in the form of UNMOGIP. However, Pakistan continues to say that we rely on UNMOGP. So Pakistan, however, did not accept the Indian argument and continued to see cooperation from the UNMOGIP. As a result of this divergent policies, Pakistan continues to launch complaints with UNMOG alleged against the Indian ceasefire violations, whereas India has not officially gone to this group since 1972 with complaints against Pakistan. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following pairs. We have the waterfalls on one side, the state it is present in on the other side. Kunchikal Falls, Karnataka; Barhipani Falls, Odisha; Nokkalaikal Falls, Meghalaya; Vajrai Falls, Maharashtra; Veisavdong Falls, Mizoram. Which of the above are correctly matched? The answer to this is 1, 2, 3 and 4 only. Why? That is because Veisavdong Falls is not in Mizoram but instead it is in Meghalaya. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to Veisavdong Falls, which is at Cherrapunji in the state of Meghalaya. We have some of the highest waterfalls in India. Which are these? What we have is Kunchikal Falls. It is located in the state of Karnataka. It happens to be the highest waterfall in India. Then we have Barhipani Falls, which is in the state of Odisha; Nokkalaikal Falls, which is in the state of Meghalaya; Nostingal Falls or the Monsmai Falls, which is in the state of Meghalaya; Dudhsagar Falls in Karnataka and Goa; Kindrem Falls, Meghalaya; Minmutti Falls, Wayanad district in Kerala; Telayar Falls, Tamil Nadu; Vajrai Falls, Maharashtra; and Barkana Falls, which happens to be in Karnataka. Please remember, this can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next practice question. With reference to convertible bonds, consider the following statement. As there is an option to exchange the bond for equity, convertible bonds pay a lower rate of interest. The option to convert to equity affords the bondholder a degree of indexation to rising consumer prices. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is C, which happens to be both 1 and 2. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2022. What are these convertible bonds? These are nothing but fixed income corporate debt entities where you would be able to convert this bond element into a predetermined number of equity shares. Let's say, for example, a particular company has released a bond. This bond will get what is called as the interest that is paid by that particular company. So converting this bond into what is called as equity or the shares of that particular company is what is called as the convertible bonds. As the very name denotes, you would be able to convert the bonds from the bonds to the equity or shares of that particular company. As there is an option to exchange the bond for equity, convertible bonds, yes, they pay a lower rate of interest, and at the same time, this statement is right. The option to convert to equity affords the bondholder a degree of indexation to rising consumer prices. This statement is also right. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is Global Employment Trends for Youth 2022 report. Let us try and understand what is this all about. This happens to be a report which is released by the International Labour Organization. This is very important from the preliminary examination point of view. When you look into this report, it goes on to say that pandemic has worsened the numerous labour market challenges facing those aged between 15 and 24. Youngsters in this age group experienced a much higher percentage loss in employment than adults since early 2020. Many of them dropped out of the labor force or they failed to get the jobs in the job market. That is because governments world over had to put in lockdowns as well. They were not able to find the jobs because of the lockdowns, and at the same time there were confinement measures taken by the government, which is why number of people were not able to find the jobs during the lockdown, and at the same time they were also withdrawing from the jobs as well. The article further goes on to say that during this particular period the family income also reduced and number of people switched to distance learning because they did not have the internet connectivity, because they did not have the laptops and the smartphones. Many people were not able to get educated, says this article. On the Indian front, India experienced severe working hour and employment losses in 2020 and 21, and Indian youth employment deteriorated in 2021 compared with the 2020 situation, says this article. The article further goes on to say in India, the report said surveys conducted by the Center for Monitoring the Indian Economy show the youth employment participation rate declined by zero point 0.9 percentage points over the first 9 months of 2021 relative to its value in 2020, while it increased by 2 percentage points for adults over the same period. It also went on to say that the employment rate of young people in Asia and Pacific region is projected to be about 14.9% in 2022, which is similar to that of the global average, although there are important divergences between sub-regions as well as the countries. In India, the report added the school closures lasted 18 months, and among the 24 crore school-going children, only 8% of such children in rural areas, 23% in urban areas had adequate access to the online education. So they were not able to get the online education because they did not have the laptops, they didn't have no mobile phones, and at the same time some did not also have the internet connectivity as well. This is where the article goes on to speak about what is called as the learning regression. What is this learning regression? Because they did not have access to the education, because there was no continuity with education, for those students who had learned something in the past, they had even forgotten those things that they had also learned as well. This is called as the learning regression. Further, the report goes on to say India has a very low youth female labor market participation, and Indian young women experience large relative employment losses than young men in 2021 and 22. In general, high youth employment losses in India drive up the global average employment losses. Young Indian men account for 16% of young men in the global labor market, while the corresponding share for the young Indian women is just about 5%. Domestic work is a highly informal sector in India, and wages are extremely low, and young women and girls are vulnerable to abuse, and this includes the abuse in the form of verbal and physical, and sometimes leading to the sexual exploitation, says this article. Further, this report also appreciated Manrega and said it has played a major role in providing paid employment, particularly for women, but also in carbon sequestration because of the Act's focus on natural resources such as land, water, and trees, which provide adaptation benefits. These are some of the parameters explained under this report. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. So, this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.